Hello everybody, a special warm welcome to Newcastle Elementary, Hannah Cole Primary and Lanesville Elementary, two of whom are from Virginia Beach, Virginia, and one, that's Hannah Cole, is all the way from Missouri in the United States. Well, I have to tell you kids, you know, most children in South Africa aren't even at school at the moment. They're enjoying a holiday, or what you might call your recess, I think you call them, or a vacation. But you're at school, but don't worry about it because your spring break is coming up, I'm pretty sure, and your summer holidays, and we've got a safari for you for the next 45 minutes. My name is James, and I'd love you to ask me any questions you like about Africa or South Africa during the course of this little safari. Sebastian is on camera. There's his thumb. He's a big fellow, and he's going to be filming this lion and whatever else we can find during the course of our little safari. Jamie's going to be walking around on foot, and in the other vehicle is Tristan. He's also a big fellow. Oh, I thought I could hear thunder, but I can't. It's another vehicle coming past. Let's have another look at this lion. And you just ask your teacher any questions you'd want to know. They'll send you through the questions to our final control, where Louise will hear them, and she will ask us the questions from you. Look at that beautiful big lion, but we don't want to disturb him too much. So let's head across to Jamie and find out what she's going to find on foot. Well, here we are, we're still with our lion, and he is so tired that he's making me yawn. I don't know why he's so tired. It's because he lies in the sun, and then he lies in the shade, and then he lies in the sun. Oh, and he's so tired. And he eats so much meat that he can't move sometimes. That's why he gets so tired. And you might have dogs or cats at home, and you'll know that they also get very, very tired. And that's because they're very different from us. They don't eat the same sorts of things. Shane, you want to know what lions eat? Well, Shane, they eat a lot of meat. This big lion, who probably weighs around about, what shall we say, about 400 pounds or so, you know that he can eat almost 100 pounds in one meal. 100 pounds of meat in one meal. Now you work out how many of you in your classroom it would take to make up 100 pounds. It's probably close to about, well, let's have a guess. Let's guess that most of you weigh between 15 and 20 kilograms, which is around about 40 pounds. So 100 pounds in one sitting, he could eat 2.5 of you guys in one go. But don't worry, he doesn't eat people. He eats buffalo, and he eats impala, and wildebeest, and zebra, and kudu, and all the other kinds of antelope that we get here. That's what he likes to eat. So he eats a huge amount, and because he eats so much, he gets so tired. I bet you've wondered why your dogs and cats sleep so much. Well, all wild cats and wild dogs, they also sleep a lot. I know some people who sleep as much as a lion too, but that's not because they eat too much. It's because they're just a bit lazy. Now, Mrs. Spady's class, you're wondering what the temperature is here. It's about 26 degrees Celsius or 78 degrees Fahrenheit or so. And so it's a really nice temperature. It gets very, very hot here, up to at least 110 degrees Fahrenheit at the height of summer. And so when we go into autumn, or what you'd call fall, that's what we're in now, the temperature is delightful, sort of 26 degrees Celsius, 78 degrees Fahrenheit, and in this, you know, at the height of winter, when you guys are in the height of your summer, it goes to about, well, in some days it will drop to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, but then in the middle of the day, like round about now, it'll be 24 degrees Celsius or so, which is almost 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So it really doesn't get very cold here at all. We're very lucky to live in a place that doesn't get cold. Alrighty, we are probably going to leave this lion. We might come back to him a little bit later. There's some warthogs around the corner. I'm going to see if I can find them. In the meantime, Jamie has got a very colourful hopping creature. Well, the lion is quite the opposite of entertaining at the moment. He's just lurking there, doing just about nothing. He does roll over every so often when a fly bites him on the nose or threatens to climb into his ear. But other than that, he has done very little, I suspect, for the last 12 hours or so, probably. Well, not quite that long. At least 10 hours. Yes, I am talking about you, and I'm casting aspersions on your enthusiasm for life. So we'll sit here with him, I think, for the next, well, maybe 25 seconds or so, and then we'll come back, I think, as it gets dark. At about 5:30, we'll head back into this area as he starts to wake up, and with any luck he will then shout his head off. Next to us we will be sore amazed. Then he'll walk out onto the clearings, kill an impala, devour it in front of us, and we'll go home for our own supper. That's the sort of plan for the afternoon. But I think sitting here with him until he does that is probably going to result in my falling fast asleep, much like him. It's a gorgeous afternoon. I'm sitting with the sun shining on the right-hand side of my face. It's making me feel deeply soporific, especially with on the left-hand side of his face, my face, that lion is lying there doing nothing. You can imagine how easy it would be to just put your feet up like this and just pass clean out. So while I consider the trials of my job, which you can see are very extensive indeed, let's hand you over to something slightly more active on foot with Jamie. Beautiful male lion who has moved not even one small inch since we left him earlier. And I was slightly worried that we were going to get here late, that he wouldn't be around, and that he'd already have moved off. Well, that is certainly not the case. So he has not moved 1 inch. He is still snoozing away, desperate to sleep away the very last bits of the day before he hopefully gets moving. I think we're going to sit with him now until the end of the drive, unless he disappears, but he certainly doesn't look like he's about to disappear. We will shortly turn the infrared light onto him. I'm going to try and run this entire sighting without any white light on him. Putting white light on him now would absolutely make no difference to his life whatsoever. I mean, he would hardly notice it. But let's just, because we don't entirely understand the effects of what the white light would do to him, and certainly because we can watch him in infrared, I think we're just going to leave the lights off, and then we'll infrared him as soon as Sebastian feels that the light has got too poor for us to watch him in the natural light. So that is the story over here. Very nice to have found Tingana again. I'm most pleased that he is back and around the place. Let us hope he hangs around, and let us also hope he leaves his daughter alone and does not steal her food. Because, of course, no one out here in the wilderness is going to feel sympathy for Shongile. We are the only ones who will feel a sense of sympathy for her. And there's that wonderful poem, I think it was by Yeats, and it goes something like, "I never saw a wild thing sorry for itself. A small bird will fall frozen from a bough without ever having felt sorry for itself." And that's a wonderful kind of poem that explains how things are out here for animals like Shongile. Shongile doesn't feel sorry for herself, and nor will anyone else. A twitch in the leg. There's high action here at the lion sighting. I can barely contain my excitement. There was what sounded like a brief alarm call of an impala just a little while sort of behind us, but I think maybe it was some rutting behaviour. They certainly have been rutting around here, and if that was a leopard... Oh, there we go. Hang on. You see how quickly they stand up, how fast their reactions operate? Maybe it was an alarm call I heard, and he smelt or heard something. What you got? See how quickly he stood up? Oh, here we go. even call straight away. Right, well, on we go. I'm going to have to get around the other side here, everyone. And Sebastian, you just tell me when you need to go into infrared. He's calling. I have never seen a lion get up that fast just to get walking. Whoa! Sorry, big tree. Ah, there are impala running in front of him. Elephants have made such a mess here. Okay, I'm going to turn off. We're going to listen to him call.
Yeah.
And again. Come on, do it again. He's just listening. I wonder if he didn't hear a lion calling in the distance, and maybe that's why he got up, looking for his brothers. He's in very fine condition. He's got a big fat belly. Still fairly pathetic, my friend. Let's go. Still no good. That's the most disappointing lion roar I've ever heard. Apparently he was doing the same pathetic call this morning. Now look here, we've come all the way out here to see you. We've spent the whole day expecting a great performance from you. If you arrive at La Scala in Italy and you have a performance like this from the leading tenor, you know, people are going to be disappointed. They're going to want their money back. You are that tenor. You must perform. And thank you for all of your encouragement to him to roar. We do need him desperately to do some roaring. Come on, fellow. So I think the agreement was this morning that this was Mfumo. Is that correct? I think that was the agreement. I haven't seen the other side of his face to see if his very large scar is still there. And I must say this camera is fantastic, the way it picks up the light on him. And now, Eliza, you're wondering why he's alone. Male coalitions of lions, especially big ones of 4, often split up, Eliza. They will move around patrolling different parts of the territory. Often a coalition of 4 will almost split completely into 2 and 2. And they may join up from time to time, but will spend their lives almost exclusively apart. The Matimbas were a very good example of that. But these guys, they haven't split up yet. They do seem to spend quite a lot of time apart, though. I don't think it's anything permanent, but he's calling to make contact with his brothers. That really is not a very impressive roar. You know, Chris, he's not warning to warn anybody. He'll call to call somebody for territory. They do not roar to warn anything else. They don't roar for warning. That's really not the sort of idea. So they'll only ever roar in order to advertise their territory or to call their mates and say, "Here I am." Now, if he could just roar again, that would be wonderful. I have my recording device ready for him. As you can see now, he's just giving us a bit of a listen. He's listening to what's going on around him. I really don't think that... Here we go, here we go. Come on. Do it. This really is bizarre, it's weird. I'm just going to have to call somebody in because Andrew wants to come here. Andrew, just come down Impala Road. He's on just off Impala Road. You'll get me a visual from Sandy Patch. Yeah, okay. We're going to put the infrared on now, everybody, so the colour's going to change slightly. Louise will then fiddle the colour in the final control, and you'll go from the sort of fairly sickening green to black and white, which is much nicer. There we are. And we are now in black and white, which is how it should be, of course. And many of you saying I need to cut him some slack because he's just woken up and hasn't had his coffee yet. I'm not sure mainlining caffeine into this lion would inspire him. But maybe I'm being unfair, everybody. Certainly wouldn't be the first time. I still want him to call though. At least his head's up. I suppose that's something, isn't it? Well, he's going to wait a long time, Carl. You say you think he's pondering the mysteries of life. And waiting for... Yes. I mean, it wasn't amazing. Carl, you say he's pondering the mysteries of life and listening to see if I'll give the answers. I think he's going to wait a long time. I'll have no answers, Carl. Which he will shortly realise, no doubt. There is somebody else coming to the sighting, so they may well put a light on him. Oh, and some of you are suggesting he may have a sore throat, and that's why his voice is a little off. I must say I find the voice very smooth, very easy to listen to. It's just not very powerful at the moment. You know, normally a lion's a little bit like Joe Cocker. Powerful, gravelly voice, as opposed to, I don't know, Roy Orbison, I suppose, who was very powerful, but much less gravelly. Or Cliff Richard, who was very smooth, but not very powerful. This is the Cliff Richard of lions. Hello, Cliff. That's the light from the other vehicle, everyone. I think it's quite fascinating how his tongue seems to have to work at the same time that his back foot scratches. Isn't that fantastic? Poor fellow. He's unable to scratch and not lick at the same time. It's ridiculous. Louise says her dog does the same. I think my father's dog does the same. Oh, here we go. He's very itchy. I wonder if he isn't a bit mangy. Well, let's certainly hope not. All right, let's go across to Tristan. He's got something much smaller, but probably a lot more active. Yes, Mfumo has done not much since you last saw him. He did do another half-hearted roar, and we're hoping for the full show shortly. He's done a couple of recitatives, and hopefully he will deliver a full aria shortly, once he's cleaned himself for the umpteenth time. And of course it's at this point that everybody starts to look at their own house cat sitting next to them, thinking how very similar he is to them in his behaviour. And of course that is... Oh, here we go. That's better. That was a much better effort. He's definitely pointing in a certain direction. He's pointing southeast, in fact towards Chitwa, where I thought I heard the last lion call at around 4:30 this morning. Yeah, about 4:30 this morning, and then again at about 6, just after we went live. And I think maybe he's hoping for a response from there. Now he looks a little bit tired again, because he had to get up so fast. I'm still not sure why he got up quite so quickly. I'm pretty sure he's going to call again. I don't think he's hungry. I don't think he's hunting. I think he is... Oh, here we go. There we go. I believe the sound has gone a little bit wobbly on my side. There we go, we're okay. Okay, let's carry on. This is wonderful, let's carry on following him. Come on, Wendy, you old bat. Hello there. There he goes onto the road, just in front of us. Oh, there's a big water hole here. I'm going to have to turn some lights on. Oh, there's also a fairly substantial forest of trees. Yes, we will get by. Chrissy, you say, do I feel the roar rattle my bones? Yes, I do, actually. It's not so much it's a rattling of the rib cage. You can definitely feel the bass. The best way I can describe it, and I'm sure many of you have done this, is the next time you're at a wedding or a party or, God forbid, a nightclub, go up to the speakers, from which the DJ will probably be playing some dross, and, this lion is having a very fine time relieving himself. And what you can do, if you stand next to the speakers, face on, you will feel your chest pounding with each sort of pump of the bass, or the bass drum, the kick drum. And it's that frequency that makes your sternum rattle, or feels like your sternum's rattling. And lion is able to recreate similar low frequencies. And that's the kind of feeling you get when a lion roars that closely to you. He's going again. Okay, I'm going to start the car. I like the way my hat looks in infrared. But he seems to be moving onto the road. Now he's laying down again. There he is. Just to the left. Oh, it's wonderful. I find lions quite difficult to watch during the day when they're doing nothing, unless they're little cubs, which of course are always great fun. But when they get up and they start performing properly, or performing like lions, performing in the way that has made them the most revered, probably of the world's predators. You find them on the sigils and flags of countries all the way from Sri Lanka to Britain, all the way down Africa. And at one stage, this animal was the most widely distributed mammal in the world. Let me say that again. At one stage, this animal, the lion, was the most widely distributed mammal on planet Earth. There's only one other mammal that has ever managed that, and of course that's us. And it's no surprise that where we went, the lion disappeared. Until now, they survive in these pockets that we call game reserves. He doesn't know that, of course. As far as he's concerned, this is how it's always been. I guess that's one of the dangers of I suppose not being of growing up in a time that is different from a time before. Children being born now will be quite used to less than 10% of the Earth's landscape being saved for wilderness. But 100 years ago that would have been unthinkable. And 100 years from now it will probably be unthinkable because it will be considered just far too much. And when I say, I often think about this when I talk about it on the school drives. I say there are probably fewer than 20,000 lions left. 20,000 to a school child or to somebody who doesn't know anything about conservation, even if I said that to adults who knew nothing about conservation, I think that was quite a lot of lions. 20,000 lions is an enormous number. But when you consider it in comparison with what it was, and when you consider it in comparison with the smallest human settlement, 20,000 would hardly register on a map. And yet there are only 20,000 or fewer than 20,000 of these magnificent creatures left in all the world. And it's important somehow that we get that message across to the future leaders of our planet and the current leaders. They understand how very few that is. So that his species, quite unlike he is doing right now, never goes to sleep. Yes. See, he thinks I'm being very profound. You can see that. Yes, thank you, Louise. All right, we're going to wait and see if this lion calls again. Tristan, I think, is back on Djuma. Sans leopard, sans bush baby. But let's see what he's going to find. He is awake. He's just done another great roar, and so we're hoping he will do the same again. Each time he does it, he ramps it up slightly. So let's see if he manages again. Of course, I wonder proportionately, I'm not sure how you'd work this out, perhaps the number of decibels divided by the mass, but those water lily frogs that you've heard there, well, they make a tremendous sound for their tiny little size, and I wonder proportionately if they aren't even louder than he is. Certainly I imagine that honour must go, or the most noisy per unit mass must go to the cicada. But he does a pretty good job, and his last call made the sort of not the undercarriage, but the floorboard of this vehicle sort of shudder slightly. And I think that when they're lying down like this and calling, that's the idea. It's to send that low-frequency sound wave along the ground. He's listening to something else calling. It would easily be another lion way in the distance. Is he crying? There are tears coming out of his eyes. Poor fellow. What's the matter, boy? Don't worry. You'll find your friends. Whatever it is, fear not. You know what it is? It's the story I've told him about the parlous state of the conservation of his species. He's become deeply upset by it. Who can blame him? He even looks like he's sniffing slightly. Louise thinks he's sad because his friends won't talk to him, but I think it goes deeper than that, Louise. He's worried about the state of his prides, his coalition, and indeed his entire species. Of course, the real reason he's crying is that he's been slapped about the eyes so many times by his brothers that I'm sure there is some leak in his tear duct. And so I suspect there you can see the slice there on his eye. That'll be why he's weeping, and why he will weep from that eye for the rest of his days. Now, although his eyes there are shining in the light, he can't actually see anything. He can probably, well, I wonder what he can see. It'd be interesting to know. He can probably see a little bit more of the infrared than we can. I'm not sure anyone actually knows how much they can see. We'll just see if he gives another call. V, that's an interesting question. You say, is the lion's roar meant to terrify the wits out of its prey so that it stops dead and freezes? You know, I for a very long time thought exactly that. And before I became a guide and started reading up on these things, that's exactly what I thought. But no, that's not the case. It's exactly the opposite. He's just not hungry. He's not looking to eat right now. Obviously, if something walked across the front of him, or if we threw him out a large Texan T-bone steak, I'm sure he'd devour it. But that's not the point of his roaring. The roaring is a territorial call. The idea is to try and let his brothers know where he is, let his mates know where he is, let the prides know where he is, and then to elicit a response from them to see if they don't call back, so that he can join them and just find out the lay of the land at the moment. And he keeps looking. He's looking in a fairly consistent southerly direction, and I wonder if he isn't hearing, perhaps, the call of one or two others of his coalition mates. And if you are wondering what I'm talking about here, he is a male called Mfumo, who belongs to a coalition of 4 males called the Birmingham Boys. The Birmingham Boys look after our territory here. They've got 2 prides that they look after, the Styx Pride and the Nkuhumas, and this fellow is just on his own, patrolling, looking for the rest of his coalition. Tristan has now got a view of the animal that was making that squeaking sound earlier. We are going to stay with the male lion for another 3.5 minutes or so. He has done nothing since you last saw him. He's just looking to the south, thinking, contemplating. Oh, here we go. Yes. Come on. Come on. There are termites who can make louder sounds than that. Maybe he does have laryngitis. Or hyoid apparatitis. That eye will bug him, I think, for the rest of his days. It will leak because of that very clear channel that's been ripped out of it. He's lucky to have his eye, actually. The clear channel has been ripped out by another lion's claws, quite possibly one of his own coalition members. They were fighting either over ladies or over food. We've seen them have tremendous battles with each other, over girls especially. Hello, Kirk. You're saying can only 2 lions make a coalition? No, like I was saying, he is part of a coalition of 4 called the Birmingham Boys, and there was a group of males called the Skybed males further up north from where we are. They were 9 at one stage, so that would be very large. It would be highly unlikely that they'd stay together forever. But 4 is quite common. 2 is very common. 3 is slightly less common. And 1 is very unusual in this area. So normally there would be a coalition of 2 or 3, often 4 male lions taking over an area. It just makes sense like that. Of course, the birth ratio is 1:1. He's smelling the air, listening. Come on, we've got a minute left. Yes, here